everybody, and thank you for joining this session, Perspectives from the Front Lines of Transformation, brought to you by NRI, Australia and New Zealand. Everybody, my name is Cameron Curtis. I'm a consultant with NRI Australia. I lead NRI Consulting's IT advisory and solution delivery practice based in Brisbane. And together with me on this stage, we have three of our NRI highly valued clients. We have Adrian, Graham and Tony. I'll just explain a little bit about their roles and their organisations, and then we'll get into some questions and put the guys on the spot to share some of their experiences about the programs that they're involved in leading and driving in their respective organisations. So, firstly, I want to introduce Adrian Law. Adrian, hello. Adrian is the Program Manager for Project Spend. Adelaide Airport is going through a massive growth phase at the moment with a $600 million investment in infrastructure on Adelaide Airport's terminals, as well as streamline operations and prepare for the future growth that Adelaide is going to enjoy. As well, recently, there was the announcement of Flight Junction, which is a large-scale investment in 27 hectares of land next to the airport, which also represents an opportunity for Adelaide Airport to be a logistics hub and a destination in and of itself. So, Adrian, we'll come back to you, but we'll look to hear more about how you are growing fast with your transformation. Right, Graham, hello. Graham is the CIO of Device Technologies. Device Technologies is probably not as well known as other companies, but it's a powerhouse. It's a company that deploys essential medical products, including things like ventilator tubes, probes, thermometer probes, and other devices. Over 30,000 products. Recently acquired a company called DTech Innovation, which adds radiation oncology products to the suite, and therefore really scaling to what is partaking in a $9 billion health industry for medical products. So scaling smart, Graham, that's your challenge, is your business. And finally, Tony, not least. Tony is with us from Air Services Australia. Tony is the head of Assurance, Cyber and Strategy in the IT function at Air Services Australia. And Air Services Australia is a Commonwealth body that operates 11% of the world's airspace. They oversee two major centres in Brisbane and Melbourne, 29 airports, 130 million passengers, 3.8 million departures and takeoffs, funded exclusively by charging airlines for the use of the airspace, as well as funding the aviation firefighting rescue team investments on the ground at each airport. So an organisation that has an obligation to run efficiently and has to be put safety first, and therefore has to be very closely monitoring safety at the same time as investing in new technology. So that's just a little bit about each of the panellists' organisations and their roles. So, and your organisation is running lean, Tony, under our program theming here. So each of your organisation represents a different trajectory: grow fast, scale smart, and run lean. So I'll ask Adrian first. Adrian, what was the single biggest transformation challenge that led you to force your hand to actually make this transformation program not optional but mandatory?
Yeah, thanks, Cam. So yeah, first let's just talk about the aviation industry. So it's rebounded pretty strongly since the pandemic, and Adelaide Airport's seen an increase in both domestic and terminal and international passenger numbers, and actually we're gone beyond our pre-pandemic levels already. Why is this? From an Adelaide, South Australian perspective, the SA economy is running really strong, low unemployment, high migration, and there's some growth industries coming into SA like defence, renewables, and education. And this is all causing people to travel more. People with a greater propensity to travel, are travelling, and it's great news for the airport. We're also partnering with the airlines on infrastructure spend. Our workforce has doubled in the last 2 years. There was an urgent need for a business transformation. As you mentioned as well, the precincts across the airport. So we've got a number of tenancies across the airport as well. And actually, Adelaide Airport's employs over 10,000 people on the employment site. We've got Bunnings, IKEA, Harbour Town, So there's a lot of expansion opportunities in that area as well. So as you mentioned, there's a major infrastructure project called Project Flight, which has just kicked off. It's a terminal expansion. There's going to be new baggage handling, screening locations, car parking. All this is happening. There's so much happening rapidly across the organisation. So we had an absolute urgent need for a business transformation. So there's a new program, a 3-year program I'm running called the Process of Spend. And that's all about, it's an ERP transformation to improve how we spend money end to end, how we run projects, how we manage our assets, and how we strengthen our procurement across the board.
An underlying part of any transformation is good technologies to enable the control of what's going to be a lot more, investment in these programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the jobs increase alone for the land lease for the extension of the logistics hub is 1,800 new employees. So I'm sure payroll is part of that equation as well. So thanks for that, Adrian. Good insights. I can see why you are growing fast. Graham, tell us a little bit about the program you're undertaking. What forced your hand to make it not optional?
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. A little bit about Device, a little bit further. We're private equity, so a lot of people don't hear about us in the market. We're probably the 3rd biggest distributor of medical equipment throughout Australia, New Zealand, and even Southeast Asia. So there's a lot that's driving us in terms of time to market and efficiencies and what we need to get out through that base. And I've got a relatively small team because I cover everything from cyber right through to products and placement in warehousing and distribution. So there was a need to be able to give efficiency in that time to market and cut out my cloth on my budget to be able to suit the needs, to be able to meet the expectations of the business. I suppose I'm coming back on that time to market again. Things move really quickly in the medical space. There's new products coming in all the time. There's new markets that are opening up. And I've got to have a team that understands that basis. I've got a core that sits there, but then how do I augment and flex to be able to get the right combination to be able to meet those needs going forward? And it's hard to retain that IP if you start to look at the consulting base and going out to contractors and everybody else in the market, especially within Australia, then the cost is significantly high and that we're churning them at a rate. So that IP that I've built up with somebody then moves out the door and they go and they run off into other opportunities. So I'm looking about how do I maintain that knowledge base within the enterprise cost effectively and supplementing that through third-party resources that are there for the long term. So long-term contracts, name resources, how do we develop that relationship? And they basically intertwine into our business. I call it extension of teams, and we treat them that way. So that's been the real driver for us.
That's excellent, Graham. And as suppliers, we need to embrace new innovative ways of working with our clients. So this is truly something different. And we'll explore it a bit further later on. But in terms of the scale of Scale Smart, recently learned that a private equity group out of Sweden budgeted the business at $1 billion. So it's growing fast.
It is.
So congratulations, Graham, and the program. We'll talk more about that sourcing of support and how we work with partners differently going forward. Tony, tell us about the program at Air Services Australia and how does it touch each of us in a way and what makes it not optional?
It's a great question, thanks Cam. Air Services Australia is a small company. We're about 5,000 folk on the ground running 187 sites, a $1.2 to $1.3 billion a year revenue stream from the aviation sector to support it. The thing that's unique about Air Services, and for me, it's a bit of an eye-opener. I've worked across multiple organisations, worked health, defence, worked inside public and private sector organisations, came to Air Services and realised that I'd found the Melbourne Star 12-speed push bike of technology. We've done everything from when I started out as an apprentice back in 1986 right through to the most leading cutting-edge technology delivering services for the country. And for us, it was about we have a technology platform that drives services for the country with safety criticality at the core of everything we do. A workforce that has tenure, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years in the company working on delivering these services. But what we found was that, as with all technologies, that the drive to change and adoption around new technologies, the encroaching space around artificial intelligence, congested airspace, working and supporting our global requirements inside Australia with emergence of unmanned aerial vehicles, drone technology, the convergence into controlled and unmanaged airspace, that we actually needed to do something really differently about how we could bring up our workforce in such a way. So for us, the catalyst was we needed to run leaner. We draw about 17% of the revenue comes back in to run our IT business, which is a substantial amount of money. We're talking several $100 million just to keep the lights on and run what we did. But what we weren't doing is we weren't getting ready for the next evolution in the 10-year to the 15-year horizon. So for us, our focus was, how do we take what we've done, the great work that's been built over decades of pedigree, and help the workforce move to the next level, but also become more efficient. Get away from having the tin in the room that we'd go out and see the flashing lights and patch ourselves, to being more open to adopting cloud-based services, technology as a service, so that we could be better at what we're doing, because we're really good at engineering, but we don't have to be the world's best data centre managers. We don't have to be the world's best network managers, but we have to be the world's best safety engineers, bringing really high quality services for the Australian community.
Excellent answer. And Tony, I think for all of us in the audience, just spare a moment for Tony and his organisation when you're next taxiing in a plane taking off and landing. It's Air Services that are powering all of those decisions. So thank you for keeping it safe.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Adrian, back to you. Adrian, with the rapid expansion, it feels almost like you've got a patient on the operating table with the brain, the heart, the lung, all being operated on at the same time. A lot of moving parts, a lot of potential for people to, be fatigued on large programs that take time, and they each almost touching each part of the organisation, this expansion program. So what have you done, or what are you doing that's ensuring the transformation remains people-focused, that it is empowering the internal teams to adapt and to develop themselves and to lead that change? What are you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Cam. Well, people are at the heart of the whole business transformation program. So the start of the program was, the genesis really was from the annual staff survey, receiving feedback from the staff, and that then got collated into a bunch of pain points, which was grouped into projects, and then ultimately into a full business transformation program. So that's the purpose behind it. Then in terms of how we execute and run the project, very much people focused. So using a lot of workshopping for solution design, requirements gathering. We use prototyping where applicable, so get the end users in early so they feel like they own and are part of the solution design. We in terms of change management, leverage the executive assistant network, leverage the change managers, so we're executing change into the business units as effectively as possible, and even the roadmap itself. We developed the roadmap and modified the roadmap based on some of the needs of the business. So, for example, leading into 30 June this year, the airport was particularly busy for operational reasons, so needed to tailor and modify the roadmap to slow some things down, speed other things up, and phase parts of the project. But we have come into a few challenges on the people side. With the rapid expansion at the airport and hiring a lot of new staff, there's a lot of new SMEs that have been hired into the business. And each of these are trying to bring their area up to best practice. And when you have a modernisation program coming through, that sort of inevitably leads to some friction and competing priorities. So we're actually, I'll just give you an example of that actually. In our capital planning process, our technology teams often feel like they're not fully involved in the business case development. And then what happens is, as we're moving down the track into the infrastructure build, the technology pieces are underfunded. And the airport actually works on a 4 to 5 year funding cycle, so really is a challenge. But what we're trying to do is use the program as a way to bring these teams together, and build processes where technology is consulted at the right time. But also, need to be cognizant of the fact that before this business transformation was coming through, the business was running pretty well, so it wasn't broken. So we can slow some things down and just prioritise, just make sure we're delivering in the right strategic order. So that's our focus.
That's excellent, Adrian. I think some of those points are worth repeating, adjusting the pace, showing people where their value component of delivery is to the end game, line of sight to the transparency to what their role and what their contribution is to the greater whole. And also, I think it's sometimes worthwhile, just ensuring that people have the moment to celebrate and just have that, because these multi-year journeys can be exhausting. I hope you're looking after yourself too and all that as well, Adrian. Graham, you intrigued me when you talked about a new way of working where partners are truly an extension of the team, is what you said. What does that look like in practice, and how has this model helped you to scale smart and still maintain the agility and the internal engagement? And you mentioned maintaining that IP.
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. Thanks for the Melbourne Star analogy earlier. It shows our age and we understand where we're coming from. I don't know if they're still in existence today, but anyway.
No, they are.
Yeah, that's right, they are. You've got one of them.
And they still go.
Good. Look, the thing that probably resonates with most people here, it's sort of like no shit Sherlock. We've all got limited budgets and we've got to be able to do more with less. About 12, 18 months ago, the CFO came to me and said, I want at least $1 million out of your budget. And I'm going, oh my God, how the hell am I going to do this? When I looked around the team and the program of work that we do. As a medical device company, part of our expansion, we're in through Southeast Asia, through 7 countries now. We often acquire different businesses that are adjunct to the services that we provide in that value chain. So I've got to be really nimble and quick and be able to deliver an outcome that supports that business drive and that growth agenda. I've also got to look at my staff base and make sure that I've got this view that, is it a great place to work? So how do I enhance their careers as we go into AI, all of those changes that are coming about? How do I drive that outcome with them? And if you look at it, traditionally, somebody's in a project space, a new project comes along and you go, oh, you guys, you're my BAU team. I'm bringing in contractors or professionals to do the project. And they're going, what? What am I doing this for? I'm just doing the same old typewriter on the hamster wheel turning around. Where is my engagement? How am I getting a better outcome? And so all of a sudden you start to work that way and you start to lose staff. They're going, look, I need another opportunity because it's not developing me in my career. So what I've looked at was to go, well, how do we do that? And originally I thought about offshoring teams, putting somebody in the Philippines or Vietnam where there was the technology base and skills to do that. You literally need 200 to 300 people to be able to support that outcome. Because you've got to have all of your HR, you've got your churn there as they're looking for new roles and activities, you've got people coming in and out. And for the size of organisation that we are at this time, it just didn't become viable. So what was the alternative to that? So, okay, how do I get an extension of team using that model, but through partners? And how do you extend that to be able to drive those costs down, but also get those efficiencies? So what I do now is we look to NRI and some others to go, I want some of your staff to be in here and I will sign at least a 12-month contract with them. They do my BAU activity and supplement a core. I've got a core team of lead to cash, plan to pay, finance, warehousing, logistics. That's my team that faces off back into the business so we can define requirements, do what we need to do there. That is supplemented underneath by this extension of team that then supports those outcomes. So as projects then come along, I then say to my core team, that project is yours. They work through that, they're getting their development and their outcomes. I backfill through my extension of team resources into my BAU activity. So they become part of that, and it's cost effective because when I look at my charge out rates for my internal team as opposed to the extension of team with offshoring effectively, then I get a better bang for my buck in terms of starting to drive those costs down. So that's worked really well for us to the point that today, my extension of teams, people come to me and go, oh, when did you employ them? They're great. They're named resources, they're fitting into our business, they're becoming part of our culture. So it's worked really well from that perspective.
Yeah, that's excellent insight. And as supplier partner to Device Technologies, we really embrace this new innovative model, taking what is traditionally been tactical deployment of individuals on augmentation and really turning it into something a little harder to set up initially, but it's really collective accountability in teams to actually achieve the same outcome and just give you that flexibility to scale up and down as you need. So scale used not just up, it's scale using up and down. So thanks, Graham. It's a good story and appreciate the innovation around the way you're sourcing capability into your business. Yeah. Tony, over to you. So Tony, Air Services Australia has got quite a breadth of technologies, and you're undergoing significant technology transformation, modernising, integrating to build more a leaning and resilient base. What have been the key enablers in this technology transformation, Tony? You're keeping in mind, as you said earlier, it's complex, but you also need to keep it safe. So is there room for experimentation?
Absolutely. Look, I suppose the first part of the question I think is most important is our people. We've got a wonderful engineering a group of folk who just build and run technology with a lot of understanding of the construct in which we operate. For me, the challenge wasn't so much about the new technology coming in, was teaching the workforce that with these challenges come opportunities, and you can still maintain safety and regulatory outcomes. You can't outsource accountability, but you can definitely start to think about different ways of delivering and bringing partners in the organisation that can support you. So for Air Services, as we embraced numerous journeys that we've continually done, we bring in specialist organisations. If you look at our civilian military air traffic control system, first of its type in the world. We will be the first country globally to ever bring the management of civilian and military airspace into a single platform. So you can imagine the challenges that brings for an organisation like us. We've got to work with a customer or partner like Defence, who have some really high security outcomes around what goes on in their environment. Every man and his dog wants to know when the F-35 pulls out of RAF Base Williamtown, pulls up into the northern corridor and blats up the coast at 1,000,000 miles an hour. That information is highly sensitive to our customer. But equally, the way that we deliver technology has to be able to accommodate that we've got hundreds of flights traversing that corridor between Sydney and Brisbane on a daily basis, and we've got to manage that airspace effectively. So what it taught us to do was that we needed to actually work inside our technology platform, take the folk that had that deep level of understanding and maturity about how to achieve safety outcomes, but teach them how to take, I don't like to use the word of a bit of risk, but how to look at the opportunity that comes along, because we are a zero risk organisation. But on saying that, you can't be a zero risk organisation, because if you have zero risk, you never innovate. So we had to teach people that risk is okay, just let's take the time to use our existing discipline to quantify the risk, understand what we're actually signing up for, be comfortable that we can measure it, and then bring them on the journey so that they could see the benefits being realised. And for us, I'd just like to give you this analogy. We've got a data centre sitting in the bottom of our Brisbane tower. It's been there for 25 years. It's got 2 megawatt generators sitting out the back. It's got diesel tanks. It's got our own separate power feeds off of grid A and grid B into there. But is that really our business? Do we need to be maintaining 2 megawatt generators down the back of the rack? Do we need to be rotating fuel through diesel jennies on a cycle? It's not core to our business, and our people that are focused there could be better focused at delivering services that are more enabling to the business outcome, and we can find partners that can come in and do that. That's why we're moving to data centres that have 5 nines availability. That's why we're moving to virtualisation for our infrastructure. That's why we're finding partners that can actually help us on the journey. We look for people that'll tell us what we need to know, not necessarily what we want to know, and who are willing to disrupt the internal organisation in a way that challenges them and forces them to think about the problem differently. If we left it up to Tony Kays of the world, who's been doing it since 1986, would get on that 12-speed Melbourne speed bike, would change gears consistently up and down. What we need to do is realise there's probably an e-bike around the corner that we need to kind of get our head around and get on it, because it's going to get us there more effectively. It's going to allow people to enjoy the journey better and actually contribute their knowledge in a different frame to deliver better outcomes.
That's really interesting, and thanks for that, Tony. I think if the audience picked it up, one of the common threads here is how each of the organisations are deploying and managing and engaging with people. So the question for all three of you, each transformation you talked about does ultimately come down to how people will work differently together. And so, Adrian, you're focused on the interim team development over the multi-year journey, touching almost every part of the organisation. Graham, you're creating seamless partnerships that integrate with in an agile way with your workforce. And Tony, you're mentioning, maintaining safety culture while giving people a sense of ownership to things and solving problems. So, what's one insight, and just keeping it brief, I do have one more question that I think the audience would be interested to hear about. What's that one insight about changing how people collaborate that surprised you? What surprised you so far? I know it's early days, but what do you see in the people?
Yeah, Adelaide's got a pretty unique culture already, but we're looking, we're always looking to improve it. People are so busy, so getting their time to engage into the projects at the right time is the challenge. So probably the one thing that I've really noticed is even when we deliver change really effectively. So, and a shout out here to my great NRI team. They've done an excellent job with the change strategy, change comms, user guides and training, everything being delivered really seamlessly. But there still comes a point in time when the end users still need to make a choice to engage in the training. Yep. They need to be accountable and actually learn the change. And we've had some challenges there. And I think it really comes down to culture, having a really good culture, top down but bottom up as well, around doing the right thing. So it is it's an improvement area, and our LT are aware of it. So it's something, I'm 1 year into a 3-year program, so we'll keep working on that.
Yeah, I love the phrase, doing the right thing, and you've got to be deliberate about culture. Sometimes it just doesn't happen naturally. So well done in your role, creating that great culture for your program. Graham, what's that one thing that surprised you about the people?
The word that I would use is ownership. So that staff augmentation, we've just done a couple of projects where our Care for the Aged division we've brought into our ERP system, and then we did another project with our PEP division. We brought that onto our ERP platforms. They were separate businesses, and we thought that there was time to do there. A lot of the teams that we brought out from the Philippines, we actually flew them into the country, and they worked with us for a number of weeks as we did the implementation. But what I got out of these people is that they're not just doing the job. There's ownership. They were going in and saying, actually, you need to do it this way, because if you don't do that, here are the problems that you're going to get. So they weren't just following the bouncing ball in the process. They were actually living and breathing what our outcomes needed to be, and felt part of that. And that was, it wasn't just a transaction with them. It was the way they wanted to work.
That's great, making individuals feel like they're empowered to be business owners in the decisions they make. Well done, Graham. And Tony, for you?
For me, it was a simple one, and it wasn't what makes collaboration great, it was what makes collaboration poor. I found real quickly that the team collaborated naturally, but the second that we didn't acknowledge the fact that they've been on this journey for a long time, transformation and change is important for any organisation, but if you don't acknowledge where the people have come from and the journey and their contributions, you'll fail to show respect for what they've done. And they've done good things. Good people do great things only when they create a sense of purpose and linkage to what they've achieved over their career. And for people in a workforce like ours, where we've got 20 and 30 years of tenure in the organisation, it was so critical to talk to these people about what made you successful in the past is also the secret to what will make you successful in the future. We need you to teach others that collaboration and working as one team is the way to get it across the line. And that was really the nuance for me, was taking the time to help people acknowledge that this was great work that's been done, and we can do even more as we work together.
Excellent, Tony. Now I'm going to give you the challenge, the hardest challenge you've had in your life. In a nutshell, can you explain how AI is playing a role? Is it something you're embracing or treating more carefully? And at the end of that explanation, can you give the audience just one piece of advice that you wish you'd been told at the start? Just one practical piece of advice. So AI and a piece of advice.
AI and a piece of advice. Okay, so look, I'm going to show my age here. I'm 56 years old, and AI for me is just the next evolution of what we've been doing for decades. I remember the story when we had virtualisation, cloud. AI is just the new enabler in there. For me, the advice I'd give you, we're on our AI journey right now. We've got a small company in, and when I say small, 4 people in this company, helping us understand how to bring AI into our organisation and broker technologies. Create a space where people can interact with AI, but you as a Chief Information Officer, a CTO, a CISO, can have insight in how they're using that tool, how they're using the data, and teach the people to use it responsibly so that you can get this curated, informative language set around these AI models that actually means something to your organisation. It's great to adopt things, but if you're not taking the time to bring people on the journey about adopting it in a safe way, you're really going to be challenged with getting the best out of it. We all know every dollar you spend on tech, you should spend 3 on training your folk. Take the same analogy and spend the time to invest with your people to get them to understand it and use it to its full potential.
And what's that pinch of advice for the team, for the audience, about what not to do or what to avoid? The wish that you'd wish you'd been told at the start.
I think it's take the time to listen. Don't assume that you're the young pup that's going to roll into the room and know everything. Take the time to learn from others, get their insight into what they've done, and get to know why they made their decisions on the way along the journey, because the decisions they've made in their career were made at the right time for the right reasons for the information they had available. You may look back at it later and say, don't know if I'd do it that way, but don't ever be the lounge chair executive who cruises in.
Good practical advice. And Graham, you might be relieved that I won't be asking you the AI question. But try and collar Graham afterwards and ask him yourself too. So Graham, but what is that piece of advice? In the same way I asked Tony, what is that piece of advice, that practical piece of advice that you wish you'd been told at the start? I'm going to ask you next too, Adrian.
At the start of my career, or at the
start of the transformation that Device Technologies is undertaking?
I think with Tony, it's to listen, and I think to empower your people. I don't have all of the answers, and even though you've got consultants or an augmentation of team and others coming in, a lot of them will come up with the ideas. Sometimes you've got to understand when you're in the driving seat and you're driving it, and sometimes when you're in the passenger watching what's going on and making sure that that orchestration is working effectively. Sort of destroy your ego to some extent. You don't have all the answers. Get in and let your team develop that way.
Love it. Trust and allow the team to feel empowered. Common themes coming through. Adrian, you want to bring it home?
Yeah, lastly, just from my career in project and program management, really just making sure the project and the program is the business case stacks up and it's well founded. It's so difficult doing change management these days, so you've got to have a good business case, and you've got to periodically go back and review that. It's just impossible to get things done, and I wouldn't take on a project these days if those basics weren't in place.
I'm sure the business case holds. Well, everybody, I wanted to just thank our panellists and just say that I think the one thing that is common, you might have deduced already, is that for a consulting business, that people are our greatest resource. But even for organisations that run aeroplanes and tarmacs and sell medical instruments, 30,000 of them, and keep the air safety, it's people that are sometimes the most precious asset of an organisation. So with that, thank you for this opportunity to talk to you and to introduce our colleagues, and I hope you had a good time in the rest of the conference. Over and out.